High blood pressure. Let's talk about this. This is one of the things that's actually running rampant amongst Americans here. And the first thing people do is trust their medical professionals. I want to make this disclaimer ahead of time. I am not a medical doctor. None of my stuff is going to be backed up by medical science, medical claims, scientific facts, or scientific evidence. I am just making content for you, and it will be for those who have the eyes to hear and the ears to see. And take this information as you will. I'm just making suggestions, making a content, making a movie, right? And that's what I'm going to be pretty much setting up here for you, lovely people. But when it comes down to high blood pressure, this is a big problem because even your little wee-wee won't work, all right? When a lot of people have, and it starts with this, you have erectile dysfunction, you go to a doctor, you think you have low testosterone, but they measure your blood pressure and you have like high blood pressure, right? And the whole thing is that the first thing a medical doctor will do is put you on blood pressure medication. The reason I know this is because a lot of people, I ask them, well, how's your diet? And they tell me my diet's not that good. And I was like, well, how are you managing your blood pressure? And they said, well, I'm on medication that the doctor prescribed to me and is keeping it under control. All right. And I said, well, does your doctor ask about diet or suggest anything about dietary habits or anything like that? And they said no, which is why I'm making this video, because everything that caused your high blood pressure comes from your diet. There are people who come out and say that they have high blood pressure because it runs in the family. Well, duh. I mean, if you basically are eating the same thing that they're eating that caused their high blood pressure, then you will most likely manifest high blood pressure. And yeah, they pass down genetic weaknesses to you. So obviously, when they say health is wealth, when you have bad health, it's sort of like a generational curse. So you're born into a poor household, right? And if your parents have poverty consciousness, you may have poverty consciousness unless you become aware of the stupid ass patterns that your parents are doing and thinking patterns and the choices and decisions that they're making. Then you become aware of it, you change that, and now you broke that generational curse. Now, that's why I say health is wealth, because when you become aware of the eating patterns that your dumbass parents were fucking doing, then obviously now you become aware and you do better, right? And that's why they say when you know better, you do better. But if you don't do better, it's because you truly don't care about yourself. And this is going to come down to a level of self-love. And this comes down in every area when it comes down to the things you put up with. It could be in relationships. It could be through diet. And you know your diet sucks, but you still eat shit. What are you putting into your temple? It's almost like this. This is like a vehicle, right? And it's moving you through life. You may have a car and it constantly breaks down. If that car is breaking down constantly, right, then you either take the initiative to fix it, or like going to a doctor is kind of like rigging a car to keep ringing it to keep working. Supposing a light keeps falling off, so you fucking tie it up with a hanger rather than just getting a whole new assembly, right? So that's what I'm talking about when it comes down to rigging. Electrical components may not be working properly. Same thing with your cooling system, right? So you may do certain things to rig it to continue to keep working, but you can't take long trips because you're afraid that you'll break down. So you rig it in order to continue to keep it working until it finally kicks rocks and dies and just passes out. Now, what you do is you can either fix it properly, right? If you have check engine lights, you put it under a scanner, detect what the problem is, and you address the part accordingly, okay? You don't just cut the check engine light off, right? Because this is why when you go to a doctor, they don't really tell you what the problem is. They just write a prescription and suppress your symptoms instead of addressing the root cause of your issues. So when it comes down to a car, you don't just cut the check engine light, so you don't cut the check engine light, because everything that's happening to you, every one of these symptoms is considered like a little check engine light, and you want to address them accordingly. The way to do this is through iridology, where you can, it's like the ultimate scan tool for the body, because you can actually see the conditions of the cells in your body. Why is that important? Because your body's made of cells. So you can see everything that's happening in your body through the iris. Because if I break your leg in real time, like let's say your right leg, it'll show up in your right eye where the coordinate to your right leg is, and it'll show up in real time. Okay. So in this instance, this is will have you know that you have like the little spokes on the eye are called trabecula. The crazy thing is that they will actually change into an irregular pattern. Instead of they're supposed to be straight, they'll actually create something called a crypt or a lacuna based on where the trauma is at. Now, when you have what you would call a disease, they start to change those patterns in time, little by little, where they start to become wavy, or you'll manifest something called a crypt or a lacuna, which will be like a hole. And depending on the color, you can see if it's acute, subacute, or chronic. All right, so that's why I look at the tool of iridology as the ultimate scan tool for the body. You can address anything that's going on there. You can see the level of stagnation, the mucus buildup. If you have drug deposits in your body, like depending on the type of diet you've been on, you address it accordingly. And the main thing that you can address are your kidneys and adrenals by seeing the conditions of these particular organs through the iris. So doctors don't practice this. They call this a pseudoscience. So what causes high blood pressure is directly your diet. So the main thing you want to do is address your diet right away. It's sort of like if you're overweight, you don't just go to a supplement store and buy a fat burner in hopes that it's going to work right away. If you change your diet first, you're going to lose weight very quickly because your body responds accordingly. Because with that weight comes a lot of toxicity that comes out of your body. So you lose toxins because your body's able to detox if you change your diet, especially if you go on a detoxification before you start a diet. And you'll notice that when you start to plateau, then you may want to go into a supplement store to get a fat burner because you're intensifying your workouts. Your diet's becoming more intense now, so your body gets used to certain things. So you want to kickstart things or ramp them up into high gear, and you utilize this fat burner for that purpose. Right? So if you have high blood pressure, you do the same thing. You address your diet and drastically change it. But with a little bit of knowledge, you could do this, and guidance, obviously, because a lot of people don't know the way to eat or the way to breathe. So to be honest to you, man, breathing is responsible for eliminating 70% of the toxins out of your body. Deep breathing alone, let's say you do breathing exercises in the morning and night, right? Only, let's say 2 to 3 minutes of this. You will actually have extreme differences in lowering your blood pressure, because 70% of your toxins are eliminated through breathing, but you're also helping the nervous system and moving things along when you're breathing properly. So you do deep breathing. There's a lot of people who say, how long? You only need to do 2 to 3 minutes of deep breathing in the morning, 2 to 3 minutes at night. When you go and do exercise, I'm going to tell you one thing. I've ran across people who say, man, I want to work out, but I don't have time. No, if you really wanted to work out, you would actually work out. You just really don't want to. You don't want to do it. Because if you wanted to do it, you find any little gap or way to do it. You know what I'm saying? Because there's addictions that you may have, and you may not have the means to even afford the addictions or even have the time to do it, but you'll squeeze any little minute you can because that's what you truly want to do, is cater to your addictive properties. So when it comes to something that requires discipline, you may not want to do that. So I tell you what, I had to run an errand in the morning, and I had to be somewhere at 10 a.m. You know what I did? I only had 20 minutes to work out. What I did was I intensified the workout. I didn't go heavy. I just went light. So I went one workout after the other, and I did supersets. So I went one workout into another, supersetting 2 different muscle groups. So in other words, in 20 minutes, I did what somebody does in an hour and a half in the gym, because I left with a crazy ass pump. Now, the exercise part is actually good for you because you're moving your body. It actually helps against diabetes, because you're actually helping to utilize the sugars properly in the body. So let's say, for example, somebody who's prone to diabetes or whatnot, lifting weights is actually very beneficial for you. All right. When you do cardio, it's good for your heart. Your body's moving, so it's good, but you don't have to overtrain. Just a little bit of stimulation helps. 20 minutes. If you know what you're doing, you can accomplish that in 20 minutes. If not, ask somebody who knows. Okay. When it comes to diet, you'll be surprised how efficient your body is at literally processing nutrients. People think that more nutrition is better, yet they still have problems. Because it's not more nutrition, it's what your body does with it to begin with. So I'll give you an example. Your body runs on like 7 micrograms of B12, and you can actually utilize this microgram for like, a few years, maybe even a decade. 7 micrograms. There's people intaking supplementations of like 5,000 micrograms of B12 or even getting injections and they're still deficient. What does that mean? More is not better. It's just your body's not utilizing what it has. It's the same thing with calcium. If you got, like, calcium is the most abundant element in the body. If you're not utilizing calcium properly, it don't matter if you put more calcium in there. All you're going to do is create more of a problem because you'll have calcification in different areas of the body now because your body wasn't utilizing it properly to begin with. In fact, your parathyroid may have been creating or producing calcitonin in order, like it was robbing calcium from the skeletal matrix, from the skin, from anywhere in the body, just to balance out the acidic content, the acidic environment or conditions you have in the body. So if you're eating acidic ash foods, then the body's going to have to use calcium as a carbon because it's the only carbon in the body to actually balance out all these acids. You know what I'm saying? So you would have to address your diet. The best thing to do when you have high blood pressure is going on a watermelon fast. If you start at least for 7 days, you would see some significant differences. And I'm going to tell you why. Because the most abundant element, amino acid in watermelons, particularly in the rind, is citrulline and arginine. You know what those are? Vasodilators. They encourage movement and circulation in the body. They also relax the blood vessels, so they'll lower the blood pressure. And guess what? They have a low glycemic index. So if you're diabetic, it is perfectly safe to eat watermelons, right? Do your own research. None of my stuff is backed up by medical science or medical claims. Now, people are concerned with the sugar. It's a simple sugar called fructose. When your body's made of cells, as I just stressed earlier on, when you eat food, the body has to convert that food into glucose, which means your cells run on sugar. Now, yeah, you can change your cells to actually, your body to run and feed off fat when you do a ketogenic diet. But the whole thing is this is an unhealthy way to do it because it's a very acidic diet. You can actually go into ketosis by just fasting, period. That's the best way to do it. You go into ketosis by fasting. Yeah, you could do it by eating high fats, but that's the inflammatory way to do it. And a lot of people already have weak kidneys and adrenals. So if you're intaking that kind of chemistry into the body in the form of high proteins and the complex amino acid chains the body has to pull apart to utilize this information, guess what? You're further stressing your kidneys and your adrenal glands. All right. That's why people get cramps when they're on a ketogenic diet. Their breath starts to smell because of all the putrefactive, the putrefaction that's happening in their gut. And also, when you look at it, you get cramps because it's a very dehydrating diet. And initially what's happening is you're not even really losing fat at the rate that you think you're losing fat. Yeah, you're losing fat, but you're also losing a lot of water weight. So that's why you appear to look thinner. And that's why people who get off the keto diet or end up actually gaining the weight right away. They end up gaining it really quickly. And that's because you lost a lot of water weight. That's what you did. You didn't really lose the fat at the rate you thought you lost it at. Right? So the safest and most effective way is by closing your mouth and just not eating. Matter of fact, the Bible tells you that fasting is the key to all diseases, the key to getting rid of all diseases. Right? I'm not even telling you to fast. I'm telling you to do a watermelon cleanse. Just watermelons. A mono fruit fast. There's different kinds of fast. There's a water fast. There's mono fruit fast. The reason I like the watermelon fast is because at least you're introducing a chemistry into the body. You're introducing hydration because everybody's already dehydrated to begin with. So when you just go on a water fast and your body's very acidic, yeah, it's resetting itself, but it's a lot easier when you can actually introduce the chemistry into the body, especially the watermelons you can grow yourself. So you got the right mineral content, the right water in the watermelon, and you also got something called life force energy. So your body, you've been eating so much dead shit that you'll realize that after a while of fasting and actually eating just watermelons, now you're starting to realize what true energy actually is because you're actually intaking energy, not dead food. Because when you eat animals, they're dead. When you eat plants, they're dead, right? Watermelons is basically, and first of all, water holds memory and water also holds information. So your garden, if you're growing them yourself, is an information bank about yourself. That's why whatever you're deficient in, it might even fill those nutritional gaps for you. I'm going to tell you one thing that's very important here. Since it holds water, you can pray over this food, right? A watermelon, and it's a complete diet. Mineral, hydration, life force. When you eat dead food, you're basically focusing on a macro wheel like fat, carbs, and protein. That nutritional value is not a value for you because once you cook it, you completely change the molecular structure and denature all the nutritional value you thought you had in that nutritional content. You get what I'm saying? So because I compost and I know what's in my soil, I know the nutritional value of my watermelon. My watermelon is very valuable to my body. You get what I'm saying? So this is also very important. When you pray over your food, especially a high water content food like watermelons, you program that water and you intake that water. You're eating the water. It's getting into on a cellular level. It's the most abundant thing you could do to your body because it's hydrating your cells, right? So when we talked about changing your car, if your car breaks down, your body is changing every 7 years. You're constantly getting a new body every 7 years. You get what I'm saying? So you're like leasing a car. But your car keeps breaking down or you keep getting the same lemon. Or let's say if you, like after every 7 years, you shed the old car, but the car that you replaced it with is still shitty, is because you just keep repeating the same patterns. You get what I'm saying? Break the generational curse, get into an abundant mindset, especially when it comes to diet. And now all of a sudden you manifest a very expensive vehicle, which is basically manifests as your body. That very expensive vehicle can only vibrate and match a frequency of something very lucrative and expensive outside of you too, in the form of people, places, and things, right? So if you eat cheeseburgers from McDonald's and whatnot, those are 99 cents, some fucking bullshit like that. That kind of diet, you're just saying you like to eat peasant food and that's what your body responds as. Peasant cells. Because you see, look at this is why they say mind your business. You got to look at your body like you're the CEO of a business, right? So you got different departments, right? You got from the head to the toes, you got different energy centers, different departments. So you want to make sure that you're not running a sweatshop. You want to make sure that you have free expression of these cells, right? You want to make sure that you're keeping a nice, stable, pH corrected environment in the body, right? So if you go to a job, you want to make sure, right, that you got a good bathroom that you can use while you're there, that you can breathe properly, that you can actually, like, you don't feel like you're torturing yourself every day, right? And you're treated fairly and good, right? So you just make sure, you got to look at yourselves like little people. You're literally like walking Galactus, like that Fantastic Four movie, The Eater of Worlds, right? So everything you eat, you are. So you are basically introducing chemistry into the body all the time. All right, in the form of acid, alkaline, masculine, feminine, electromagnetic, positive, negative, good, bad. Everything runs on polarity. You have to, because that's what life is. Life is chemistry. But you got to be your own chemist, your own scientist, and feeling is the key. What do you feel about certain things? How do you feel about certain foods, right? So when I look at certain foods that I'm growing and I'm eating them, it's like I feel so much gratitude and health. But it's because I know that I'm eating something that's coming out of the most abundant place, which is called nature. And my garden is a product of nature. It's part of nature. It is nature. My body is a product of nature. So why would I eat stuff that's genetically modified? My very last video was very, very good, where I spoke about how the viruses, the influenza and whatnot, and how you are what you eat. Matter of fact, I'm going to link that video in the description of this video because it's going to tie into a lot of the stuff that I spoke of when it came down to even like knowing yourself, how junk DNA is not really junk DNA, it's just dormant. You know what I'm saying? But we continue to keep it dormant through the diet, but also main and foremost, buying into the medical industry, taking these vaccines, since we're coming into this planet, born perfect, yet we want to take 72 vaccines just to participate in society because we have to introduce that image of the real virus that we have outside. So before we introduce ourselves to the real viruses, which is why they say when kids play in dirt, they strengthen in their immune system. Instead of us communing with this natural virus, we're putting the artificial virus in us, right? So that's the first influence, and it molds us to actually participate in society like good little battery cells. That's why I had one parent one time told me, and I mentioned this in a video a long time ago, where the parent said, hey, my son was hyperactive. He wouldn't focus in class. He was just like, the doctor was like, once he got a vaccine, it changed. Now he's super attentive. He's like, robotically straight. Now he's a good kid now, man. I mean, I was kind of worried about him before, right? And you see, now I also have experienced where some kids are very high energy, and this does not sit well with the parents. You get what I'm saying? And then they're trying to find something to calm them down. Like, do you have something to calm my child down? And I'm like, why are you trying to, like, a child is naturally high energy. Your goofy ass at your older age, you're looking for something to give you energy. And yet you see a child with all that energy and you're trying to mellow their energy down, but you're looking for something for energy because you're tired. You see what I'm saying? It's just like ass backwards. It's like everybody, like it's not even like you have to be a doctor or somebody super smart. It's just basic common sense. You know what I'm saying? Why do you as an adult feel tired? Well, let's look at this. If you're in a desert and you're dehydrated, what are you going to do? You're going to drag your feet. You're going to feel like you're going to pass out because you need water, right? Maybe you're dehydrated. Your diet is very dehydrating. So you have no water on a cellular level, because you could drink all the water you want, but if your body's very acidic, it's no different than me taking a potted plant, dumping a gallon of water in it. It's not going to drink the gallon of water. Most of it came out the bottom of the drain hole. You get what I'm saying? So you watered it, but once you put it back outside in the heat, it'll be dry in no time again, no matter how much of the gallon of water you put into it, right? The human body's the same way. Your body's so acidic that you're drinking water and it's just going out the bottom of your drain hole. And yeah, you watered your body, but in no time it'll be dry again because you're in a very acidic state, right? So this is why it's important to look at the pH of your body. You ever pour water on the soil on a really hot, dry day? And since man comes on the soil, he dies, he goes back to the soil. When you pour water and it just rolls off, it doesn't really soak in. It's because of how hot and dry it is, right? Look at it like that. When your body's so fucking like dry and agglomerated and so acidic, it's the same thing. So when you alkalize your body, you're actually able to absorb on a cellular level. You get rid of the fat cells, but actually you shrink fat cells, right? But you get rid of the toxins. Because what like diabetes is like fat in the cells, like inflammatory markers on a cellular level, right? But when you take a shower, and the reason I mentioned this is because cells are like little people, right? You're just a more complex form of a cell. You're a walking cell. You're just a more complex form of a cell. So a cell needs hydration and water, right? To purify and cleanse a cell out, right? So the same way, when you take a shower, you wash your ass with water. You don't wash it with oil, do you? So it's the same thing. When you drink water, it's going through you. But if you're absorbing water, you do it by eating the water, by eating watermelons. Foods of a lower glycemic index, but a high hydration index. So you got a lot of water, like cucumbers, right? Cantaloupes, watermelons, grapes, all the berries. These are all super powerful anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, high hydrating foods, right? So they're good for your brain, they're good for your heart, they're good for your endocrine system. Why? Because the pituitary gland governs your adrenal glands. The adrenal glands govern the autonomic functions of the body, which is the autonomic nervous system. And without this, your lymphatic system is not eliminating waste properly, right? Because it needs the help of the adrenal glands. So you got to kickstart these things by actually giving your body a break from these complex chemistry. The key to health is keeping the chemistry simple. See, when you're in the womb of your mom, right, you're all water. When you come out, you're more water than an adult is. An adult is more stiff, more rigid, more dry, more like closed-minded. You notice a child, they're very flexible, malleable. They're so watery, right? They're like water. You could feel them. And what are they eating? They're eating baby food, right? Or you give them liquid foods and you acclimate them to solid foods because you're introducing them to the building blocks of life. Because they're growing. But when you're done growing and you're declining in age, you should be hydrating more. You're supposed to be eating, again, the same way you were when you were a child. More hydrating foods, more watery, more liquid foods. If anything, eat much less because you're done growing. What building blocks are you trying to put into your body? This is why people start growing now. They grow sideways. You know what I'm saying? So now the most important thing here is to hydrate properly and keep an open mind. That closed-mindedness comes from what you're consuming to begin with in the form of information. And because you're eating such a dry, agglomerating, acidic food, it becomes a recipe for disaster. It actually governs how you actually think too, because you are what you eat. And the most important thing here is, and if you're eating these complex chemistry foods, they teach you this in school. You can't kill you can't kill energy. You can only transmute energy. So when you eat meat and say this animal died in some horrible conditions, you're intaking this chemistry. You intake these emotions. And then people later on, why am I so depressed? Why am I so... And that could be from the energy you intook that you did not transmute. That's for one, because you ate dead food. And two, don't forget that that food is actually very acidic. And what happens is that the parathyroid gets compromised And because it has to produce calcitonin and whatnot, and this calcium utilization is not utilized properly in the body, you start to create depressive symptoms. You know, like you feel depressed, you feel down, you don't feel energetic, you don't feel upbeat. Your frequency, your vibe is all low and shit. You know what I'm saying? And that's because of the chemistry you put in. So now, if you're tired, hydration, right? I just told you what it is. Breathing exercises. If you're in an airplane and you're running out of oxygen, don't you feel like you're going to pass out? So a lot of people are shallow breathers and they don't realize that they're walking around kind of fucked up, not breathing properly. Now, another thing that's super important here is the foods you're eating actually intoxicate you because they actually create ammonias, nitrogenous waste, and most importantly, alcohol. So that's why it's important to breathe properly so you could get rid of all these toxins out of the body. That's why when you get pulled over by a cop and you intoxicated yourself with alcohol, they want you to breathe on a breathalyzer. And they want you to take a deep breath and actually expel the breath all the way out. Because they want to measure the amount of toxins that you have in your body, because the pump of your body is the lungs. The heart is a valve. It measures the cardiovascularity of the body. In fact, the heart has many strong functions. That's actually the emotional mind. That's the feminine energy there in that center. You get what I'm saying? And that has to have a coherence with the mentality on top, which is your brain, the masculine mind. Because even in that polarity, you have polarities. You have a left and right hemisphere. The left brain is more masculine, more thinking, analytical, logical. The left brain is more emotional, creativity. It's more the feminine brain, right? In your heart, you got different valves, right? So I'm going to actually make a video about the heart in and of itself. And I'm going to do it on the thymus gland and the hypothalamus, okay? We'll do that in another video because that'll be crazy to try to get into it'll make this video another 30 minutes. So the hydration, the breathing, and also your movement. So you move around. You actually have to move your body. You notice how a couch potato, right? They're not really using energy, but how is it that they're lazy when they're just not really using energy, right? Because I use the analogy of like a car. Like when I got the engine running and I got my headlights on, everything's moving. It's okay. The car's on idle. But if I shut the engine off and my lights stay on, I'm draining the battery. You see what I'm saying? So you're watching TV all day and you're just laying there. You're not doing anything. The motor's not moving. It's just like that. That's why you feel like a couch potato. But when you get up and you stimulate yourself in different areas of the game, when you're walking around in your environment, but you're moving your body, you may be exercising, get a little sweat on. The little sweat on, yeah, you're creating lactic acid. But what do you do when you create lactic acid from exercise? You breathe deeper, right? Because your body's looking for that pH balance. That's why you breathe harder when you work out. You know what I'm saying? You may want to drink some water. You see, the body knows what to do. So you're doing it automatically anyway, especially when you're working out. That's why I call an exercise an exorcise, like an exorcism. You know what I'm saying? Because I use my body and I do an exorcism every time I work out. I may have some negative emotions or whatnot, but I start producing dopamine. I start producing those endorphins and whatnot, those chemicals that actually make me feel fucking great, gets my testosterone going, especially when I'm hitting my thighs, when I'm doing leg workouts. You know what I'm saying? My testosterone is shooting up. So that's why it's important to work out, right? Exercise in and of itself is not the healthiest thing, but it is a necessary thing. That's the whole thing. You get what I'm saying? Like I'm going to make a video on exercise alone because exercise technically isn't natural, but it's a necessity. It depends on how you do it. It's not what you do, it's how you do it. That's the most important thing. A lot of people even work out just because they got picked on in school. They have some trauma. So they go to the gym. They don't even really want to be there. They just do it because they're trying to like hide an insecurity or some shit. So it's like, you know, there's different even mentalities behind it. So it's like not just what you do and how you do it, but it's the mental state too that matters. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of people who fall into spirituality just because they grew up into some of the most traumatic states. You know what I'm saying? Like the most poorest countries are the ones that actually are the most religious. You know what I'm saying? And then you got the more richer ones are more of the non-religious ones. So I'll make another video on that because I want to talk about the whole Jesus Christ and man and whatnot, and how even like poor people have more babies than like people who are rich. And there's a reason for that. It has a lot to do with mentalities and the animalistic natures that people are in. It has nothing. And that people say that it's because they're following like what Christianity tells them, right? But it's not. It's no different than my cat who's just basically looking to just reproduce. You know what I'm saying? Like, they don't have anything else to do. They're, working hard and whatnot, doing what they do, but they still look to just multiply themselves. That's just all animalistic. It's just ensuring the survival of their species. You get what I'm saying? The richer people, they may have a little bit of a busier lifestyle and whatnot, but it's also the fact that they're not in their animalistic nature. They're more in their logic and reasoning, right? Knowing that having children is a distraction in and of itself. And it depends on the individual. You get what I'm saying? Some people are born for that. Some people are not. But the Bible tells you that your body is, like, some people actually say, not in the Bible, but some people will tell you that your body, you're made to procreate. Yeah, if you look at your body, if I was to look at what, like, the organs and whatnot, I would say, yeah, your body is an instrument that looks like it's for procreating, but it's not that you have to procreate. You get what I'm saying? You don't have to procreate. Like, that's just there as something that you can do. But procreating, you have to know yourself first. Because if you can't handle yourself first, why would you take on the responsibility of taking care of somebody else that you can't even take care of yourself? This is why I talk about knowing yourself very well before you even get into a relationship with a partner and even having children. This is why, and they talk about how birth rates are at an all-time low. Birth rates are at an all-time low is because of the fact that humanity is waking up. And not only that, but how much has lifestyles gone up and how much has pay gone? Look at, to go to school, how much debt you have to get into. You know what I'm saying? Everything costs money. The fact that you have to, like, medical insurance is another scam. It's another scam. So you'll have one bill before you have insurance, but if you have insurance, you have a different bill. It's a much higher bill. So what was the point of the insurance to begin with? I'm going to actually tie something in the video of this description so you can check out what I'm talking about when it comes to the way insurance itself even works, as far as to, like, you get one bill before you have the insurance and then another bill after you have the insurance. You know what I'm saying? So what are you paying for then? I mean, what was the purpose of you paying? So with this video, there's a lot of different avenues and information, and it's tying in from my video I just did before this one, but it comes down to the high blood pressure part. Because here's the thing, and I'm going to leave it with this. This is the golden key here. When they give you the medication, okay, for high blood pressure, that high blood pressure medication, the majority of them affect your kidneys and your adrenal glands. Now, if you want to research, weak kidney and adrenal glands cause high blood pressure. So if you're taking medication to suppress high blood pressure, but it's damaging your kidneys and adrenals, which is the cause of your high blood pressure, do you see why they keep you going back to them repeatedly? You're like a repeat customer. You get what I'm saying? So, like, if you look at the definition of a doctor and a healer, two totally different categories. One is a licensed practitioner to practice medicine. Another one's a healer, gives you the information and the knowledge. You go on your merry way, hoping never see you again. Because now it's going to require discipline. What you know better, you do better. Now it's on you. But when you go to a doctor, you leave it at their hands at all costs, all the time. So I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but you got to see things for how it is. It's like legal drug dealing, because the more pills they give you, the more money they make. You know what I'm saying? I'm not a medical doctor. None of my stuff is backed up by medical science or medical claims. None of my stuff is backed up by scientific evidence or scientific fact. So I'm just making content. I'm a content creator. So go do your own research. I'm not telling you anything that you should or shouldn't do. Again, I'm just making content, maybe making suggestions for adults only, because if you're an adult and you have the mentality of a child, you should not even be listening to my channel. You know what I'm saying? So I'm going to tie another part into this video because it's a very complex topic where I'm sure I probably left a couple of things out. So I'm going to be tying other things into this video so that this way we can keep it organized. All right? So if anybody has any questions, comments, concerns, or anything like that, or even criticism, leave them in the comments. All right? Leave them in the comments. Speak your mind. I'm not going to get offended. Trust me, I'm not going to get offended. Matter of fact, I look for the smoke, especially if you're a doctor, just come and give me the smoke. I want the smoke. I'm letting you know that. Like, share, subscribe, and we will talk soon.